Hey everybody, it's Lon.TV, and the folks from Lenovo let us borrow another computer to check out. This is their new Yoga 314. This is a laptop running with the latest Intel processor, the 5th generation Broadwell chip, and I'll switch it on here so you can see how fast it boots up. This is a 2.2 gigahertz i5 processor, 8 gigs of RAM, 256 gigabyte SSD. It is pretty quick and snappy, actually. This has the same processor and memory as the Dell XPS 13 we looked at a couple of weeks ago. This one feels a little bit faster, and I'm seeing that in the benchmarks too, and I think it's because this one has just a 1920 by 1080 display versus the Quad HD we saw on the Dell, and I think that's the better combination of processor, GPU, and display. So really, to get the best, real bang for your buck, I think the 1080p displays are better than the Quad HDs in this processor configuration. This really is a nicely performing device. The screen is a little bit dimmer than I would like. It's also very reflective, as you can see. So if you're not into these reflective screens, this one may not be for you, but it looks okay. Again, a little bit dim, but the resolution looks pretty decent, and you don't see any pixels on the screen, and it is a nice display to look at overall. Now, the reason why they call this the Yoga is that you can contort it into a whole bunch of different positions. So you can fold the screen all the way down flat like so. You can flip the keyboard underneath it here like this and kind of use it in a little tabletop stand mode here so you can watch a movie or something like that. You can flip it over into tent mode too if you want to do that, and it gives you a little bit more options for how you want it to hold itself together. The latch here does have some nice friction to it, so it's not going to very easily drop off there on you. And then you can also fold it all the way back into this big tablet mode. And what happens here is occasionally the keyboard and mouse don't shut off fast enough when you flip it over when you go into tablet mode. But normally when it is in tablet mode, it's going to disable the keyboard and the trackpad, so you can hold it like this. And because this has an SSD, you don't have to worry about it getting shaken around or something like that, that you would have that, an issue like that with a spinning drive, which could get damaged by doing all this kind of movement. This works pretty well in this configuration. But this is heavy. It's about 3.5 pounds, and it does feel a little weird to have these keys underneath your fingers while you're using it in tablet mode. The trackpad, I really don't feel comfortable holding it on the trackpad side because it feels like it's putting a little too much pressure on the trackpad when your hand is holding it like that. But it is pretty neat that you have that option. I think it's probably going to work best just sitting flat on the desk here as opposed to something you might want to walk around with, just because it doesn't feel all that comfortable as a tablet device exclusively. But again, you have all the options that you could possibly want for contorting the screen and keyboard. And you've got your usual array of ports on here, although you've got this special yellow USB port. And what this is the power adapter for charging it and, of course, using it while it's plugged in. And it's got this little notch on here to prevent you from using this plug on one of the other USB ports, because it puts a lot more voltage through that power adapter than it normally would over USB. But when it's not plugged in, you can plug in a USB device and actually use this as a USB port. It'll be a slower USB 2.0 port, but you could put like a memory stick or something, a printer or whatever, in there and use it when you're not plugged in, which is pretty nice to see. You also have a USB 3 port on this side, another one on the other side, a headphone microphone jack here, so it'll work with one of those combined headset devices there, and you can also plug in a SD card. It does stick out quite a bit, so it's not going to be something you'll leave in as a supplementary storage device, but you do have that card slot available to you. On the other side, you have that other USB 3 port, HDMI out for plugging it into a monitor, so you can use it kind of like a desktop if you wanted to. Volume rocker up and down. This is the screen orientation button, so you can move the screen orientation around just by pushing this button here. This button next to it is recessed because it is their recovery button, so they call it the Novo button. So if you ever have an issue with the computer, you just turn on the computer while pushing like a little pin or something into that little button there and get it up and running. And then, of course, right there is your power button. Now, the one thing I'm not too crazy about on here is the keyboard, and the reason is that they moved the enter key and everything else for that matter over to the left a little bit to accommodate this other row of keys on the side here. So the page up, page down, end key. And what happens is that because I'm a touch typer, I'm used to everything being a certain way, and this feels like it's a little bit off center. I'm often feeling like my keyboard is pushed off to the left a little bit more than it should, and I'm hitting this page up key a lot when I really mean to hit the enter key. So it really has been a bit of a problem for me as I'm typing. The keys also have a little bit of an odd shape, kind of a curve to them, so sometimes I'm not hitting the keys as accurately as I'd like to hit them. That might be something you can get used to. And there isn't a lot of travel either to the keys. Travel meaning how far the key pushes down when you're typing on it. So not the most comfortable keyboard I've seen on a laptop. The trackpad isn't bad. It does exhibit some of the same issues that many Windows trackpads do when you're trying to scroll with two fingers. As you can see, it doesn't always pick up your finger movement right away. It does eventually get there, but a little bit better than some others I've tried, but there still is a bit of a delay when you do put your finger down and when things start scrolling, and that's been an ongoing issue on a number of Windows laptops, and this one's no exception. This might be the Microsoft Precision touchpad thing more than it is necessarily the hardware. All right, we're going to do some real-world performance testing now. I promised to get to the fun stuff, the games, at the end of this section of the review. So what we'll do here is just go on to the New York Times. You see it really renders the page quite nicely, as you would expect it would for a computer of this price point, and things just seem to pop up very quickly. The pages render nicely, so as a web browsing device, it'll do quite well. The screen is a little bit dimmer than I would like, but the text quality and the overall image quality is really nice. So it doesn't get as bright as I would like it to, but it does really look nice when you're reading things on screen. So it is a very readable screen. The video playback performance on YouTube is very good as well. So you can see here we're playing back a video from my YouTube channel. It looks nice. We're at 1080p here without an issue. I've also been able to do the 1080p 60 video without any kind of problems either. It does run a little bit better in Internet Explorer for that. If we take a look at its Octane test, which is a test of how well it can render JavaScript and general web pages for that matter, this test is a Google test that I run on Chrome on all the devices that I look at, and you can see the score here is pretty high, 24,069. It actually scores better than the Dell XPS 13. You'll also notice that it is pretty close to my MacBook Pro Retina from 2012, which has an i7 processor and cost a lot more than this one did. So you can see really just how advancements in processor technology over time really bring prices down, brings down the power consumption considerably, yet we're seeing really good performance either way. So really pretty neat how things are moving along here. So let's take a look now at its multimedia performance. All right, here we are running Kodi, formerly known as XBMC. I've got a Blu Ray MKV file. This is basically a video file that I took off the disk that I own without any kind of transcoding. So it's playing back a really large file right now. And as you can see, as I hop around here, it really comes up very quickly. There's no delay or lag or anything like that. This is a 1080p movie, again, a Blu Ray file that's running at its full bit rate over wireless. And this does have wireless AC, so that does give you some nice wireless performance if your router supports it. But I think as a multimedia device, this will work really well. And I suppose every once in a while you may want to get some work done, so we'll pop open Microsoft Word and this newsletter template that I like to use on all of my reviews here. I do like to run Word 2010 over the current version of Word just because they don't have this text animation feature activated in 2010 that makes everything look slower than it really is. So 2010 is a better way to see just how fast the processor can handle stuff. And as you can see here, as we're typing in, things are very reactive and immediate. I can resize this image here. The text flows very nicely. And as I scroll through the document, things render pretty quickly too. So overall, a nicely performing device to do some work on too. And now that we've done all of our work, let's take a look at some gaming. We're going to look at Minecraft and Counterstrike GO. So let's start with Minecraft. So I have to say the Minecraft performance out of here is pretty darn good. It's running anywhere from like 30 to 70 frames per second, which is impressive for the Intel graphics. It's not running with a discrete GPU. This is really nice performance. I am running with the Optifine plugin, which gives us a little bit of a performance boost, but nonetheless, it really is a nice Minecraft experience overall. I have noticed some flakiness with the mouse though. Sometimes when I'm doing something like flying here, I can't actually move the mouse until I let go of the space bar. So there is some weirdness to that. So if you are looking to do some higher end gaming on here, you might want to get a separate mouse because there seems to be some oddities in just how it performs when keys are pressed. So you can see I don't have a key pressed right now, and once I start moving again, it stops doing that. And there's no consistency to this, so sometimes it stops letting you use the mouse, other times it lets you use it. It's really bizarre. So I'm not sure if that's a driver thing or something else, but just something to keep in mind. And I'm actually pretty impressed with how well Counterstrike GO runs on this device. I have it turned up at 1920 by 1080. It is really smooth. I got most of the settings turned up too. I can put a link to a screenshot of exactly what I have the settings set to. But this is running just really, really nicely here. In some cases exceeding 60 frames per second because I'm seeing some clipping as I'm moving around and whatnot. So really, really good performance. Much better than I thought it would be out of these Intel internal graphics. And I'm really impressed with that. I don't think it's going to run run things like Grand Theft Auto 5 or some of the latest high-end games as well, but it will run them, I think, with some settings really reduced, and I think you'll also be able to get things like some of the 2D games out there like League of Legends and others to run fairly well on this platform. The only issue, though, is that mouse problem. So as I'm holding down the key here, you see I can't actually move around at all. So this is not something you're going to be able to put on your lap and play with at the moment. I'm hoping this is a driver issue. I'm going to ask Lenovo about this because this is really disappointing, especially given how nicely the gaming performance is on here. So battery life out of this is about 5 or 6 hours, give or take. At least that's my estimate from the usage that I've been doing with it. And that's kind of just general web browsing, some word processing and whatnot. You can, however, get at the power settings very easily on here. You just have to click on the little battery icon in the taskbar, and you can very quickly get to different power modes to either get more performance or switch it into a less power consuming mode pretty quickly and easily without having to dig through menus and everything. So that's a pretty nice feature. And I think overall it's a decent laptop. I like all the contortions you can put it into. That's a kind of a nice ability to have some different ways to consume media on the device. The tablet mode is really not as useful to me, just given the weight of the laptop and just how clunky it feels when it's in that tablet mode, but you can put it in that if you so choose. Maybe you put it down on the desk and let a kid play with it or something. That should work out okay. My only gripes are with the input on it, really. The keyboard is, again, I don't like this extra row of keys here, which kind of throws off the keyboard layout a little bit for me. And I'm also a little bit concerned, actually a lot concerned about the fact that you can't push down a key and move the mouse at the same time when playing a game. And that's really disappointing given how well the graphics are performing on here for the built-in Intel chipset, which is really impressive. So I'm hoping this is a driver problem. I'm going to, again, ask Lenovo about it because I think this is actually a pretty good gaming laptop. Not a high-end gaming laptop, but certainly adequate for running a lot of games that are pretty popular out there. So we'll see if they're going to address that issue moving forward, but I'm really impressed with the performance on this and just wish the keyboard was a little bit better. This is Lon.TV, and thanks for watching.